There were times like my father would be trying to spank me and I'd be like, Waka Shege, you go and beat your mates.
What?
It's me. If I'm your mate, why is it me? And then he beat me someone, I'd be like, sorry. And then he'll leave me and I'd be like, is it because I said sorry that time? Come and try it now. So
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of With an S with your Afrobeats Avenger, because we're a couple of Avengers, like they're out fighting crime, nothing too deep. And today we have a very special guest. I feel like I say this all the time, and we say this all the time, but this one is in another stratosphere, ladies and gentlemen. This man is a man that is super accomplished across a number of facets: music, advertising. He's a very, very special songwriter, singer, producer, and I feel like that's still putting it lightly. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for Cobhams. Woo, 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 woo. He's making some noise as well.
washer dryer. You can wash and dry.
No, sir. These are the facts. These are the facts. Sometimes we big people up, but for you, this is even downplaying it. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Before anything else, how are you?
I'm correct. I'm all right.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I'm feeling myself.
I love it. I love it. We should all be feeling ourselves. I think so. I'll start from this. It's a question I usually like to open it up.
Yeah.
In early school days, everybody's report card usually had comments on their character and behavior. Some people got remarks like he's very intelligent, but he talks too much and stuff like that. What kind of feedback did you get?
That would have been me, I think. Yeah, he's intelligent, but he's yeah. Did they say he talks too much? Yeah, I was a little rough sometimes. Yeah. So that was generally, but it always started with, he's intelligent, he's this, he's that, and then they threw in the odd, yeah.
And what was the kind of stuff they would complain about?
That's interesting. So there's something from a song sometime in the 90s that had a line like, throw away your old bank statements, keep your old love letters. For whatever reason, that stayed with me. So it's very difficult to remember the things they compliment. I remember the compliments more than I do the
Fair enough.
Yeah, but they would always say, I always did well in school. So I don't know what was really, I think, I played on school assembly and all of those kinds of things. So it was very difficult. Even if they wanted to criticize me, I don't know, maybe my report card was just not the place for them to do it.
Oof, I love it. I love it. So I kind of want to start from family life. Right. In the past, you've said that you are who you are because of the kind of love your family showed you.
Absolutely.
I kind of want to bore into that just a bit as far as what exactly did they do? Was it in how they spoke to you, the responsibilities they gave you, just letting you live your dreams out loud sort of thing?
Pretty much all of that. So I didn't grow up with much, I didn't grow up like with means and all of that. Pretty humble beginning.
In the barracks.
In the barracks. I grew up in the military cantonments. My father was a soldier. My mother, she started out life as, she was a clerical officer, and then she decided to take time out and just, look after me, look after us, all of us. But then, having to deal with a blind child, like that's a new experience altogether. And so you focus, and that was pretty much what, she did. She just took out time and focused on me and, the rest of my siblings. And so I noticed that, while everyone treated me and referred to me, in many ways as special, not necessarily by what they said, just what they did. People would give me stuff at times, even when I didn't deserve it. And that would get to my head sometimes. And there were times when I would ask for other people's things. And my father, being the unpredictable individual that he was, even though he gave me everything I asked for, there were times I would ask for other people's things just because I realized I couldn't. He'd be like, what's that? And I'd be like, oh, wow, why is this guy like this? But so there was a lot of love. Yeah. So there was just a lot of love. We didn't have much, but we had love. And, I got as much love as any kid, in my position needed to grow and to thrive. And I got spanked, when it was necessary. And believe me, there were many times when it was necessary.
Yeah.
I was that kid. And, just to give you a funny little anecdote, there were times like my father would be trying to spank me and I'd be like, Waka Shege, you can go and beat your mates.
What?
It's me. If I'm your mate, why is it me? And then he beat me someone, I'd be like, sorry. And then he'll leave me and I'd be like, is it because I said sorry that time? Come and try it now. So I was quite the kid. I had a mouth. I had a mouth as a situation. Yeah. So they knew that. And they didn't spare me because of, my blindness, for that reason. So they showed me it was a mixture of, soft love and tough love. And that really helped. That really shaped me. Yeah. My brothers introduced me to rap and hip hop and all of that.
Yeah.
My sister just loved me, pretty much my second mother. My mother, obviously loved me as my father. So just a lot of love, but the good kind of love, you know what I mean? The good kind of,
Fair enough. I think it's so interesting that you mentioned you're speaking about I've lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, you were talking about like being a bit audacious in that sense, like talking back to your dad and things like that. Mm-hmm. Those anecdotes I feel like stretch across a number of people who have audacity later in life. Like SARS, for example. He lived in a very strict household. And his father wouldn't let him go outside, but he used to flaunt those rules all the time and just go and play on his own. And I feel like that audacity kind of translates into like his life now with the musical choice.
It's something that happens when you're present, I think. I think so in this life, some of us are present and some of us are sleeping. And I think we're sleeping while we're awake. You know what I mean? And when you're present, you'll ask questions. My manager shared something interesting with me just today, about, just being able to question, what's your long-held beliefs. And, that is true. When you're present, you have the audacity, among other things, to question even your long-held beliefs. Mm-hmm. So I think it comes from being present. I've been present quite a bit. I've had, my moments where I have kind of slept through certain important experiences in life or important events. Like when I was first getting signed by Sony, I literally slept while my lawyer was reading the contract. So yeah, but generally I like to think of myself as someone who's present and who's awake. And when you're awake and you're present, you will question just about everything.
Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. You kind of touched on just a little about your brother introducing you to rap music. I feel like I want to just get a bit more details about what kind of music was playing in the house, who was playing it, what you were listening to just generally.
So my brothers introduced me to, my brothers were hip hop heads.
Okay.
And then growing up in the 90s, they introduced me to all kinds of, like the good, New Jack Swing, the good hip hop. So we're talking, Fushnikins, Big Daddy Kane.
Okay. Well, you said good hip hop though. That was a qualifier you used. Is there?
So bad there was only I think in the 90s there was only good hip hop. Quite honestly.
That's such. That is an old head belief.
I know.
It's not true.
I know.
It's not true.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I just think there was something about hip hop from the 90s. So for instance, everyone who knew the hip hop had the Chronic album. So let's start from there.
Fair.
Yeah. So I was in that space. So for me, it was West Coast, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Das Corrupt, Warren G. Just that era.
Yeah.
That sound, the G-Funk era.
Ooh, fair enough. What's actually, this is a question that was supposed to be ahead, but I'm going to skip. Actually, no, let's get into continue. The G-Funk era.
Yeah, so it was all that. It was Domino. It was who
Nate
else?
Dogg.
It was, of course, it was Nate Dogg, and then, Diddy and them crew came much later. But it was first that West Coast orientation.
That was your grounding.
Yeah, that was my grounding.
Fair enough.
And of course, the Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah.
And that whole sound. Yeah. So that was it. That was where it started. On my own, though, I was always listening to the BBC. So I was listening to the Promenade, the Proms concerts. So, on the flip side of this whole situation, I had Edward Greenfield, and I was listening to like Tchaikovsky, Ravnovsky, Bach, Handel, Mozart.
And this is all of the BBC.
Haydn, yeah, and all of that, yeah. So it helped also to influence. I think this pretty much formed like the basis for like my production style also.
Fair enough. Now another thing I wanted to just get into, because I feel like this is a conversation we always sort of have. At least I always try to have. I want to speak about the spiritual aspect of you. Right. You've always described yourself as a deeply spiritual person and said that conversations with God shaped your decision to dedicate your life's work to music after trying Outlaw. If you can share, and if you're comfortable with it, what were some of the things you were asking God, and what were some of the things that you heard back?
So I was in an interesting place, and I know that's a very blanket way to put it. Interesting can mean just about anything. I don't think I had the kind of spiritual awakening naturally that I would have now. I think it was more skewed towards, my perspective and my orientation as a Nigerian Christian at the time. And whilst I'm still a Christian, I think that, my view has expanded and my understanding has expanded as well. And, obviously that would, if I were to have that same experience, how I would relate to that, or what my expectations, my processing of the whole thing would be different. But at the time, it was just coming out of what my life was at the time and the expectations. So, I'd done well in school. I was supposed to be studying in Macon in Georgia, and then I wound up in Unilag. And my admission was taking forever to process and all of that. And so, you're going through the whole, even though I'm going through this and God is holding me now and this and that, and listening to Kirk Franklin and feeling some type of way, and well, God will get me. So it was just a very basic, simplistic, God will get me out of this at the right time.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so that was what it was. But I think the decision to then just get out of school altogether and follow my passion and follow my law was, I think, more spiritual in a way, and maybe a little less religious and more spiritual, because my religious upbringing at the time would not have permitted
music.
No, not music. Music is steeped in religion, but my religious upbringing would not have permitted the kind of audacity that would be required to make such a bold step.
Fair enough.
Because it is rooted in obedience before asking questions in some, instance, and that sort of thing. And so, again, I think it has to do with me being awake. So I think there's a spiritual side to me that's always been awake and that has always lived above the confines and the dictates of my Nigerian Christian religious beliefs, if you will. Yeah. So I think that was more or less what directed my action at the time.
Fair enough.
You want to call it my chi, call it whatever you want to call it, but I think the God living in me who says, look, forget everything right now and follow the path that is yours. Forget all that you've been taught. Forget everything and follow the path that is yours, which I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Just sort of going through that experience that could not be defined by my straight-laced Nigerian Christian, within that context.
Yes.
And, it expanded. And I can only say this now because I recognize it now for what it is. But, it's that direction that feels almost instinctive to say, this is what you're going to go forward and do. You know what I mean? And you're breaking the mold, because there are many things I had to do that I didn't know. For instance, I didn't have any blind producer reference in Nigeria, and I had to go out and do that. And so one of the things I noticed, though, in terms of, to answer your question in part, in terms of what did I say to God and what did God say back to me, I don't think for me it was that sort of direct interaction in terms of hearing the voice of God necessarily as the series of events that unfolded, as much as them leading me, to my destiny. For instance, I noticed that I would leave school and I'd go and make music, and music would be all over the place. Like, for instance, I left school to go and make Catch Cold for Maintain, and I left school to go and make This Not True Story for Face and Maintain in India and all of that. And those things would just catch fire. Yeah. And, I'd come back to school and I'd be struggling with, admission wahala and exam wahala and this and that and that. And I just felt, my spirit say to me, look, whenever you're in line with, or whenever you're, according to the will and the purpose of, God for your life, the doors swing open.
They do.
Even when it becomes difficult sometimes, you find peace and endurance to go through the times. But you find that you struggle and it's frustrating, like hair-pulling kind of frustration when you're trying to make something work, that is not in alignment with your purpose. And sometimes we have the strength to pull through even such situations. But, there's a lot, we leave casualty, in its wake. And so recognizing that, I sensed that, this is my own spiritual communication. This is God speaking to me through this means. And so that was one of the things that helped me. At some point I had to make a choice to follow the wave, to follow, where the wave was going and stop fighting against the current. Yeah. And I feel like that was God leading me. So it was a very different spiritual experience and counter-cultural, if I dare say, because it was leading me in the direction that was at odds with everything I had grown up learning and doing and sort of becoming.
Yeah.
But it was true enough that, I was going to take a risk, take that chance and follow it. So I think that was my own sort of spiritual, experience at that time.
Yeah.
And I can put words to it now, better than I could at the time. I think at that time I was just busy living it.
Yeah, fair enough. And I often find that in situations like that, it kind of comes as like a stirred up dissatisfaction. Just a dissatisfaction with the current circumstances. But you spoke about maintains catch cold, and I wanted to get into that a bit. This is something I've always thought, and now that I have the opportunity to ask you, I want to get into that. So the production of catch cold, and you spoke about G-Funk earlier, which is also very interesting to me. The production is very unique, has like a very G-Funk West Coast bass.
It does. And you're the first person who would actually talk about that with me. So you know your music.
I do. I do. But there's also a very strong similarity to Ludacris's area code.
Absolutely.
And I have to ask, because this is one of those fanboy questions from young. Did it start as an area codes remake, or did that come after the fact when you did the beats?
It started as an area code remake. So Olu came to me and was like, that was his reference, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was his reference. He wanted, area code was his reference. And so that was Maintain style, from Domitila to their first Nibo Lawangbelo, where they sampled Matt Morrison's Crazy and all of that. So that was their style. And for me, I had always wanted to work with Maintain from when I heard Domitila, I think. But what I wanted to do differently was, as opposed to them just, sampling or taking people's beats and all of that, I wanted to create music for them that would be original. And so when I got the chance to do that, instead of creating the exact, Ludacris. I mean, at that time, we didn't, what did we know about copyright and this and that and that, But instead of creating the exact thing, for me, I wanted to give them a sound, which was influenced, of course, by, my love for, the West Coast, that era, that, mix of funk and the mono synth, sound, which, Dr. Dre used a lot in his productions.
Yeah.
So which we had, you had to, ooh, ooh, and then I had a reference to da-da-da-da-da, because, that's one of their songs.
Yeah.
I also had a thing for like mnemonics and themes, and visiting some things, just, threads, something that you can tie to the person.
Fair
and so I
enough.
referred to another hit song of theirs with that line, da-da-da-da-da-da, but I wanted to have that mono synth sound in there. But I also wanted it to be their sound.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Interesting story, just to mention.
Sure.
That song almost didn't happen because my manager at the time, so I met Big Bamu making, I was creating a commercial in the studio, and he came in, was looking for a CD to burn something.
Okay.
And there was no CD in the studio. So I offered to give him a CD, and he wanted to pay me for it. And I was like, no, just take it. I had like a couple of CDs to burn the commercial I was working on. And he was like, oh, wow, you don't want money for it? I was like, no, just take it. And he was like, oh, by the way, I love what you're working on. Can you work for my guys? And I was like, who are your guys? And he was like, Maintain. I was like, me, Maintain. See, you don't even have to pay me. Like, I will do anything to work with, because I'd always liked him.
Yeah.
And then I told my manager at the time, and so they then came and proposed what they were going to pay me. They were like, we'll pay you 10K per track or something, or 5K per track or something like that. Naira. And me, I was like, I will do it now. And my manager was like, how can you collect that? I don't have a track. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I got them to come back and see me when my manager was not around. They paid me the money. I didn't even use the money to do any. I used the money to buy suya and drinks for the session.
Wow.
I didn't care about the money. I just wanted to make music for Maintain. So I went to the studio armed with my suya and my drinks. We had a blast. At some point I was so tired, but I was still working. So in Iboshi pencil she raised, I made that whole song asleep pretty much. I was sleeping and sequencing. Made the whole thing. My manager heard that I'd gone out and I made music for Maintain. She quit being my manager. Song went on radio and blew.
Yeah, no, I remember that was your first big
That was
radio.
my first, yeah. So it was just meant to happen, and it was beyond. And I know this is nothing to do with your question, but I just wanted to put that out there. It was beyond the money for me. It was just an opportunity to share that sound in my head. That mono synth West Coast bass, that funk bass, that mono synth sound, lead sound, that whole the kick and clap, the whole Charlie Wilson inspired, all of that. I wanted to put that thing out there. And I felt like, for whatever reason, it wasn't in the Nigeria. I felt like it would elevate the sound that was coming out of the Nigerian space. It was very avant-garde for the time. Yeah. And that was pretty much what I wanted. I wanted to show that I could do it.
Fair enough. I love that. Those anecdotes really helped. But you also spoke about doing commercials. So you said you were doing a commercial, and that's what Big Bamboo heard.
Yeah.
So had you broken into that space at the time?
I hadn't really. I'd done one commercial for a food drink business because the guy heard I could do it and took a chance. Again, he paid me 10K to go and book studio session. I don't know what it is with 10K. I went and booked a studio session. I made like 5 commercials in one day.
Wow.
Took it to the guy. He was excited, started talking to me about corrections, this, that. Then my auntie heard and was like, who's this cheapskate that is using me? Seized the CD and said that the guy should come and meet her. How would the guy be using me like that? And I thank God for her. She was such an influence in my life. And so based on that, a couple of so that was a chance for me to make that bit of music. And then some other friends heard a copy of the CD and were like, you can do this. We have a company called Atlasco Technologies in Apapa that, they want to do some, radio promotions. So they were providing internet service at the time and doing all of these, exciting things. And they basically just wanted to do something, and come out. And the CEO of the company then was a very young guy, Tony Dabu. I think he was maybe about 19, 20 or something like that. And he had just left AIS and, was doing his own. He was pretty much the tech bro of the time.
Okay.
And then they called me and they were like, can you do this thing? And then this time they were going to pay me like 50K per commercial. And I was going to do like 6 for 300K. So 19 years old, I'm collecting 3. I was feeling myself, So that was what I was working on. So it was basically my second opportunity to create commercials. It was during that particular situation that I ran into Big Bamboo. And after that, I think I just kind of, entered into the commercial space, just cutting commercials.
Fair
and all
enough.
That, yeah.
What was the first one that made you feel like, whoa, like this is serious now?
So the first commercial that made me feel like, oh, this is serious was I did something for, I did something for MTN. They had secured the rights to use Enrique Iglesias' I Can Be Your Hero, Baby.
Oh, wow.
This was in 04, I think, or something like that. 04. Yeah, 04, 05. It was 04. And I was still in Unilag then, I think. And they asked me to do a sample of how I was going to do the production and all of that. So I did the sample. I played the guitar myself. I know there's a guitar solo in this one. And I played the guitar solo myself with an old acoustic guitar. Sent it to them. And I was told later by my friend who was a creative director on the project that they had to title that sample Nobi Enrique because there was a chance the sample was going to be mixed with the original project. And what they had done then was secure the rights to recreate it and not to use the original project. So they would have been in trouble if they had ended up using the original project.
So what, the textures were so similar?
The textures were so similar.
Oh my goodness.
It was that close.
Wow.
It was, so when that happened, and then they were like, okay, go ahead and finish the project. But I quoted so low for the project that my friend Tolu Ajayi, God bless him, called me. I was like, you know what? You need to do a little better for yourself. This thing is not going to. And he was like, so he told me, quote better. And what he told me was like twice what they were going to, pay me initially for the project. And I went and quoted, recorded the thing, came back. And then one day, I think it was 05 or something like that. And CNN was running ads and this thing came up and I was saying, would you dance if I ask you to dance? And I was like, what? I worked on this. This is my work. this is my work. And that was a moment. I
Okay,
was in
watershed moments. I love it.
I was surreal.
I love it. I feel like you keep mentioning people who just keep taking you to task on the business side of things. First, your auntie, then your friend is like, do better for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
That actually makes me wonder, when do you feel like you started to gain that real business savvy awareness? Because that's something that you're very good on now and they have been for years. But like, when did
It took a while.
Yeah, so I want to know when that started.
It took a while. So fast forward maybe 2 or 3 years later, I then set up Cobhams Asuquo Music Productions and started to make, like commercials, make music for my own people. And I just started doing my own thing and made quite a bit of money doing that, but hemorrhaged a lot of money in the process because first of all, I didn't understand. I took it, in my head to mean that if you had talent, you were successful and you'd be a successful businessman. And so there was a lot of talent, but no business acumen, no business anything, essentially. So I was making money, but losing money. First of all, I was doing profit sharing. Everybody, you make money, you come in to play drums, you come in to play shekere, you come in to sing, you get a piece. You weren't getting paid, your regular rates or whatever. I just felt, it was the thing to do. And so I woke up one day and realized that we'd made so much money and had nothing to show for it because we were. So I think it came from failing in business. Being talented, having business opportunities and all of that, but still failing in business to realize, okay, you have to learn this thing. You have to learn, to set, structures and processes and things like that. And, set this thing up. So I would say somewhere around 2009, 2010, thereabout. Wow. Yeah. So I spent the first how many years of my life just, and it's interesting because I wasn't going out and drinking and smoking or doing anything crazy like that, but I was just, money just came and went.
Fair enough.
That was the general idea. Money came and went.
Fair enough.
But at some point I was like, okay, so you've got to make a business out of this thing.
Yeah, structure.
Structure. And I think that then began to happen. I still had moments of just sort of failing forward even after that because I think you've also built habits.
Yeah.
You've also built habits. You want to take care of everybody else's problem.
Yeah, you have a heart.
You have a heart. Yeah, which is not a
bad thing. Yeah.
But also not a very wise thing if it's not done from a place of wisdom and careful calculation.
Has to be stewarded.
Yeah.
Fair enough. That's almost 10 years in the making before the business actually started to look proper.
Pretty much.
That's insane.
But you can avoid that by just going to school and studying business, quite honestly.
Fair enough.
I learned on the streets.
Fair enough. But even having said that, between starting and getting that business acumen together, you were one of the first people who charged in dollars.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
This is 2 years before even the Asha album was released, because you said 2005 is when you started.
Yeah, they're about 2005.
My question then is, even though you didn't have the business acumen, there has to have been a level of confidence that was like, you know what, I'm going to do this and whoever. Because things like this, I imagine, would make you less appealing to people because this guy, they charge for dollars, let's free him. So why? And also, actually, this was only just a few years removed from producing for, in your own words, Meat Pie and Fanta. That was something you had said. So
absolutely, yeah.
Where did that come from? Where it's like, I can charge in dollars?
I think I had value in my work. I have value in myself. So, it's a very weird paradox, right? Where on the one hand, so even though I charged in dollars, I also did a lot of free production that same period. Because on the one hand, you are yourself. You know what I mean? You want to do stuff for people. You want to see people succeed. And money is not the primary object and all that, And on the other hand, you're like, look, I do my best to, whenever I do this thing, I make sure it's different from anything around me, anything I hear. And that commands, that's a certain level of value I bring, And so I understood the value of my work. Even though I didn't understand how to protect my money, I understood what my work meant. I understood that, this value of work, this level of work should cost money.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I probably just didn't know how to keep the money or maybe how to collect it from everyone, who came to work with me. Yeah, but I knew the value of what I was putting in. I knew the sound was different. For God's sake, I was influenced by many things I didn't count as common even in the space I was in. Not everybody listened in depth and understood classical music and jazz music the way I did. And I was able to bring all of these different, experiences to my production. So, just from listening to it in the studio, with every sense of modesty, I knew that, there was something about it that was different. It was dollar worthy.
Fair enough.
In that sense. Now, whether I collected the dollar from everybody or whether I managed to keep it was another story.
Fair enough. Yeah. So I guess it was a thing of like comparison to scale. Like, so the scale of what people were doing, you didn't feel like you were that far off. Like people were charging dollars.
Yes. And then, and then naturally you'd hear stories and, I like information generally. I like information. And I think I had begun to hear at the time how people like Pharrell Williams, people would, bid for their beats and, and they, upwards of $150,000 and things like that. I'm like, if I can't do that, I can at least do 5K now. What's up? What's going on? Plus, I think, I'd begun to get a sense of inflation indices and things like that and how, I could sort of stabilize my charge, in an economy that was not predictable in terms of how the Naira was going to flow.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, just by pegging my product to something stable, kind of how you would peg currency to like, the gold standard or whatever. Yeah, so I'm a bit of a reader. So for me, things like that made sense, So it wasn't so much, I wanted to charge in dollars because I also wanted to just be international or this, even though I thought, what I created was international. Yeah. I also wanted to ride, inflation from a safe place.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and I felt like, charging in dollars.
I mean, hedging your bets on the dollar is never a bad idea. So I'm curious, you've spoken a bit about, the Sony ATV music publishing thing where you were a songwriter, I think between 2005 and 2010.
That's correct.
What did that period teach you?
What did that period teach me? For one, it taught me to stay awake.
Okay.
Like I said, I slept through parts of my contract reading. I was in London. It was cold. My lawyer had an accent that was musical. I just slept. I just slept and I was like, well, we're here to sign it now. We'll sign it. Yeah, so, I mean, I learned to just sort of stay awake, and ask questions. But there's only so much awake you can stay as a 21. No, I shouldn't tag age to this because some people grow faster than others.
Yeah.
Some 21-year-olds have achieved certain things and have just sort of wisdom for life that some 30-year-olds don't have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just stay awake and, get wisdom at an early age. Read, ask questions, and just be present.
Fair.
Because when you're present, you won't walk into certain types of situation. I think my Sony deal, for instance, was a good deal, but there were just certain things, because I didn't ask questions, I was not aware of.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I wasn't aware that I didn't understand fully the implications of having to put out 8 published songs in a year. And that if I didn't do that, the next year I would carry over the remnant of...
Oh my goodness.
So you get the picture.
Yeah.
So if I manage to put out 4 published songs, I would carry over the remaining 4.
And you have 12 the next year.
12 the next year and so on and so forth. That can make sense when you have an agent who's out there making sure your stuff gets published and this and that and that. But when you don't have an agent or you're working, out of Nigeria and your contract is in London and...
Oh my goodness.
We don't have... the established sort of internet, Apple Music, Spotify setup that we have now.
Yeah.
It's quite a task. So fortunately for me, I had worked on the Asha album, at that time.
Yeah.
And so that helped me scale through, my first number of published songs and this and that. So a few things saved me here and there, in ways I could not have saved myself, So yeah, I would say I learned to be present.
Yeah.
I learned to be awake and just pay attention.
Yeah.
I learned to use opportunities better. There were parts of my situation with Sony, I felt like I just you get to a point where you just become, not nonchalant necessarily, but you just start drifting. You kind of get used to the process.
Yeah.
And you just start drifting. I've learned that it's an opportunity and not an opportunity everyone has.
Yeah.
So you've got to always make it count.
Yeah. It's a platform.
Yeah, it's a platform. And you need to always make it count, not just for yourself, but it also creates an impression for the people who are coming behind you. Yeah, so I'm very intentional about things like that because of that particular experience. I've learned to set a definite date to terminate your contract, especially if it just frees you up for bigger opportunities. And things like that. So and then I learned to work under pressure. I learned to
I was going to ask about
write
that.
like a machine. I learned to I learned to do it. It taught me a lot of things, actually. That's my experience with Sony ATV taught me a lot.
Awesome. So now this next question I want to ask is about the Nigerian music business landscape. It's something that I think you've been, I won't say critical of, but definitely have not always had the most glowing words for. So especially as regards the infrastructure, what do you think about the industry now? Especially, I'd say, with all the expansion that's happened in recent years. Is this something that you feel a bit more satisfied about, or are you still just like, we have a lot to do still?
I'm still quite concerned. I feel like we have a lot to do because I feel like, the expansion is not in our hands. I feel like not a lot of us are major players, even with the expansion. I feel like it's expanding because we have numbers and because there are people who have the line of credit to come in here and take advantage of our numbers.
Yes.
So for me, that's a problem. I feel like the powers that be in this space, and I'm not mentioning names, are too clueless to see the opportunity that is the numbers and the talent and everything, integrated in the Nigerian music space, such that, outsiders pretty much are taking advantage of it. And I think that it's a problem. It's a problem. We are poised to be major contributors to national economy, but we can't do so if, all the money we're making. So one artist manages to make, so just do the math. An artist makes 7 million naira, for argument's sake. Spotify makes 3 million naira. It's in favor of the artist, right?
Yes.
But by the time you have 10 artists making the same amount, right? Spotify has made 30 million naira, right?
Yes.
10 artists who are going to spend their money in Spotify's country, in addition to what Spotify is making for itself. You know what I mean? Or breaking apart to different places and buying stuff that, doesn't come back to our economy. Yeah. Meanwhile, Spotify is able to, pay its debt, grow its line of credits, grow its business, do all of that stuff, contribute to its own economy, and now scale this to the thousands and the hundreds of thousands. So at the end of the day, what are we gaining from it? We're here, we're just liking our music, liking our culture, doing all of that stuff. But, we're not getting back the money. Yeah. And, should we really, when you think about it, because, the banks are not, I don't know how many people are sort of in that position where they can be trusted to receive money as people in the upstream and downstream oil sector and this and that and all of that. What's the credit facility available to the musician, who wants to make music in this space, and contribute and all of that. So we're just, it's not a system that favors us. Yeah. But I don't think we care because, individuals can take care of their families and just we're just seeing trickles. Yeah. And I think we're excited moving from a place where there was nothing to a place where we're seeing trickles that, eventually get taken out of here anyway. Yeah. So I think we're an opportunity, and I think we're an opportunity that should not be missed. Yeah. I think that serious conversations should be had, besides, so taxation is easy. It's very easy. You can tax people and collect their money. That's easy. But, how do we create, a whole integrated ecosystem where we're making the music, we're making the money, the value service providers, the Spotifys and the Apple Music of this world, are domiciled in this country. They're making the money. They're paying tax in this country. We're spending the money within our own tourism. Look at Dirty December, for instance. Mm-hmm. We're spending the money within our own, ecosystem, basically doing everything within our building houses in our own ecosystem. So we're throwing away the opportunity. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're an opportunity that must not be missed. So that's just putting it simply. Yeah. So that's why I'm like, it's exciting. I like that all of these things are happening and people are going. But ask yourself, how much time do our A-list artists actually spend, or how much of their money, what's the value of their money that they spend in this country? And you can't blame them. Because the system is not created to support them spending their money in this country. And
honestly, that's what I wanted to get into a bit, because when you speak about big game players and them not realizing the opportunity, my feeling has always been that there is no industry that can surpass the infrastructure that underpins it.
Absolutely.
So any of the efforts that they would make against that would be altruistic. And how many people would we expect to be altruistic in that sense?
Exactly. And you're altruistic, at the risk of what you're putting your head on the chopping block for what cause?
Yes.
Really.
Yeah.
For
people
what
forget.
cause? You can't save the system. You can't save the country on your own. You can't, the powers that be, again, need to feel a sense of responsibility. And even if you don't feel it from a place of altruism or from a place of we want to do better, even if it's from a capitalistic place, for God's sake, just, be sensible enough to know that this thing can make you more money. Let's even say you want to continue to be selfish. It can make you more money. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And ultimately, create jobs and, give more opportunities to the people, that are in here. But I think, first of all, like I said, they're clueless. I don't think people know that's messed up.
No innovation, just taxation. Very sad. I'm curious. Another question I was going to ask. You seem to not take things personally. So, for example, there was an incident where an A-list artist didn't show up to a session with you after making you wait for 8 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Come to find out that he didn't want to work with you because you're blind. You were pretty unmoved by the incident, and like you said, you just pretty much moved on. On that subject, have you since encountered the artist, number one?
Yeah. We became great friends. We've made music since then.
I had a feeling. Even though you probably never reveal.
I will never reveal. No, never reveal. I encountered the artist. We became great friends, and we've become great friends. And
Did you have the conversation?
No.
Wow, so he doesn't know till date.
No, he doesn't.
Incredible. So that's even what I'm talking about. How did you become this kind of stoic character who doesn't take things personally, especially in an industry that can be very spiteful,
It starts from so as a kid, I think I wasn't aware of the import or the complication of my being a blind person. I think it started from there. And so to me, being blind was any other form of description, tall, short, dark, fair, whatever, blind, whatever. Because as a kid, I didn't see what I couldn't do. So let's say it started from a place of foolishness. And then when I became aware of it, I decided to approach it from a place of strength. So because I was not necessarily aware of what I couldn't do as a blind person, I ran around and did everything everyone else did. And when I would run into things and people would be like, person with it is sorry for no, they're sorry for himself. And, it didn't make sense to me. Like, why are you sorry for me? And so I just carried on. And generally, because of that, I didn't really pay attention to anything. I wasn't a softie going around going, God, why me? Why am I here? I just carried on.
Fair.
And so by the time I began to realize that, life was different for me as a blind person, I had pretty much built that thick skin.
Fair.
And I think I'd gotten to a place where it was important for me to just sort of negotiate my way through life. And so if it didn't work, if as a kid someone called me, blind boy or whatever, I'll be like, and so what? If I ever cried, it was because I wanted them to beat you, and I knew that they would beat you if I cried. It wasn't because I was hurt, So,
oh my goodness.
So I think I knew enough to sort of manipulate the situation.
Fair enough.
And I just didn't care, man, to be honest.
Fair.
And I began to understand that helped me. It helped me make friends. People weren't worried about the fact that I'd be touchy about being blind or being this. And so people dealt with me based on merit and not necessarily based on pity or based on, it allowed me show what I really was about or what I really could do. And when I found out that was my strength, I was going to lean heavily on it.
Fair enough.
So anyone who would be like, I can't do this with him because it's blah, 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 you know what? Just keep doing what you're doing, Jerry. Let other people discover and let other people do it and let it pain them and let them come back if they come back and not come back if they don't. And it's my approach to this day. I had a meeting with someone, talking about, business opportunities and all of that. And and the person was like, wow, I would like to do this. I'd like to do that. And then the person didn't show up,
Yikes.
a number of instances. But that happens in Lagos all the time, right?
Yeah,
People talk and talk and talk. We'll do it. We'll link up. We'll collaborate. And then nothing comes out of it. But what I find is because I just keep pushing, I keep going, I still meet these same people in rooms and they can't say it, but I can sense it. The reaction is, how did you get here? Because I got here nonetheless. And I think I got here because I didn't hold on to, I didn't feel bitter or hold on to some kind of bitterness from our encounter.
Yeah.
I just moved on and life provided a way and God provided a way for me to still get to where I'm going is more important to me than anything else. So I think, that's the spirit for me.
Awesome. It reminds me of the verse in the Bible that says to let go of every weight. Offense is a weight.
Absolutely.
Offense is a weight.
It's a huge albatross sitting on your neck, pressing you down.
But yeah, I want to get into your production a little now. And I'll start with a little anecdote, a little story. So there's a story that Don Jazzy tells about being excited when Rema used one of his beats for the song Bounce.
Oh, yeah.
And it meant a lot to him because for a while it felt like he was being sidelined by lots of the new artists. Like yesterday's news, his beats were like old news, I also think of ID Kabasa now, who's doing a lot of reimaginations of older tracks and updating them to now with new artists. And that makes me wonder, just being the kind of producer that you are, who's always, danced to the beats of his own drum, what does reinventing yourself look like? Or is it even something you think about?
Yeah, I think that's the reason I still do what I do. I think that's the reason, I'm still making music, because I'm constantly reinventing myself. Once upon a time, we were all listening to Earthquake and Remedies and the likes, and then we moved to D'banj and right now we're listening to Fola and, Fido and, so I'm constantly listening to what's going on and reinventing myself. And I think it keeps me relevant. I think, however, being able to do that, the system is set up in such a way where, new cats must come, and you should be ready for that. So I think I was ready for that. I always knew that there will come a time when I didn't know their names, but other producers will come and they would dominate the scene.
Yeah.
And I was ready for that, and I was ready for them. I was ready for them. And
In what sense?
I was ready to play a role in inspire. So first of all, I believe that I played a role. The likes of myself, Don Jazzy, we all played respective roles in influencing and inspiring, the younger generation
Absolutely.
of producers to create their music. But I was also ready to play the role of directly mentoring and inspiring, young producers and making them understand that this thing is not, you're not in competition with me. It's your time. And my goal is to help you avoid the pitfalls I wish someone helped me avoid in my own time. So I was ready and intentional about playing that role.
Did that involve outreach? So were you reaching out?
So I think a lot of them reached out. So naturally, when you have some kind of reconnaissance, people will reach out, and people would, associate with you. So so people reached out. And when that happened, I opened my arms and I made them understand that I was aware of this. Like there will come a time when you will dominate the scene.
Yeah.
And I'm ready for that. And I'm ready to inspire you and to help you do that. And I believe that you'll do that 10 times better than I have done that. So I was ready. I was ready. I was so ready. I wanted to step into a different role. But also, I recognize the fact that, as someone who's also evolving and, still making music, it didn't mean that I could now no longer fund. So MI is still, in my opinion, one of the best rappers in this country.
Definitely.
I don't care how many people come after him. And so the fact that other people have come after him does not mean that he raps less or he's become less intelligent. Also, you just find your space, you find your space in the stratosphere and you just do your own thing. So in addition to inspiring and working with and being part of the lives of young talents and celebrating them, I have still managed to find my space and do my thing. And in some cases, bring some of the innovations and some of the things that I learned from these guys, and I bring that into the productions that I create for, whether it's a Timida Kolo or whoever it is, that's still in that space doing their own thing as well.
Yeah.
So for me, it's an exciting ride. It's an interesting ride.
Yeah.
And my role continues to change. While I continue to make music because I love music, my role continues to change and I'm aware of that. So I then move into a speaking role or move into a teaching role or move into a mentoring role or move into a, structure role or whatever it is, or policy making role at some point, you understand? So evolving is not just changing the kind of music I make as an active producer, but evolving in terms of my role, first as a foot soldier, and then as a general, and then as a consultant, and then as, whatever it is I end up becoming.
Yeah, fair enough.
The most important thing for me is I try to continue to make myself useful.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Jazzy has done as well. He was a foot soldier making music for D'banj and Wande Cole and everybody. And, he's built arguably the biggest label in Nigeria as we know it today.
Yep.
He continues to do things. He continues to, love it or loathe it, Jazzy is probably one of the most relevant content creators in a good way in this country.
For sure.
So he continues to evolve and he's inspiring people. He's making people's dreams come true by being an active philanthropist.
Yes.
So our roles continue to evolve. We continue to see ourselves as useful. So I think for me, that is more exciting than anything else.
Fair enough. So prior to the release of your first album and subsequently after, you said you didn't like your voice, and it's something that I feel like you've been very vocal about. I have to ask, a whole album, many songs, and some years after, how do you feel about your voice?
I like my voice now.
Awesome. How do you get there?
You get used to your voice. So I think most of us don't like our voices. We just don't know, because not a lot of us get the chance to record our voices or to hear our voices recorded. I think your voice in your ears for the first time outside of your body is alien to you. Yeah. And I think that was the experience I was dealing with.
So what was the difference between the voice you heard in your ears and the voice you heard outside?
The voice you hear when you speak is just your voice, really.
What's the difference with yours?
What's the difference with mine?
Yes. Like, what difference did you hear that you didn't appreciate?
Do you know? I've never really processed it. That's a very interesting question. I'll think about that.
Okay.
I think part of it might have been you know yourself. You know yourself too much. It's personal see finish. You know yourself to that point where you just I think I just got used to my own voice, and then I think I know what the difference. So hearing myself outside of my head, I wanted to sound like all the people I liked. I wanted to sound like Michael Jackson and Bob Marley and this person. And I didn't sound like them to me, But I didn't understand that they also had practice, which I hadn't had at the time.
Yeah.
So I don't think I was fair to myself. I don't think, I could hear my voice cracked, for one, And what I didn't know at the time was everything you heard on radio, on TV, wherever, was polished and arranged and prepared for the purpose.
Yeah.
So you never hear when Bob Marley was recording and his voice was not, 100.
Yeah.
You'd never hear when whoever D'banj was recording.
You heard it with Fela, though.
Yeah, you heard it with Fela, but Fela was self-aware and he didn't care. He didn't care.
No,
and even with Fela, you didn't hear it all the time.
Yeah, true.
You didn't hear it all the time. What you heard was his texture, the fact that he had done it. And even when you heard it, it didn't really... So these days, I hear my voice cracked and I don't really care, because again, I'm also in that place. I've gotten used to my own voice.
Nice.
So one, I wasn't used to my own voice. Two, I was used to hearing my own voice cracked and all. And for these other people who I looked up to, I didn't hear them that way. So I felt like my voice was not good enough, But then as I would record artists in the studio, like I would do riffs and runs and things, I'm like, but wait, I'm doing this thing better than this person I'm recording. So why am I not recording myself?
Yeah.
But I had also spent so much time by this time being a producer and directing other people that when I started making my own music, I wasn't sure the direction I wanted to go. I had more experience with directing other people than I did with directing myself. It was like trying to cut your own hair. It can be something. Something you'd have to learn to do if it's that important to you.
Yeah, fair enough. I was going to ask, and this is also just in reference to the work you've done with other artists, what qualities usually stick out with an artist that make you think, I need to work with them, I need to work with that person?
I think the biggest quality for me is there's something in the voice of an artist. I don't know what it is. I think it's your personal soul. It's your unique ID. It's the thing that makes you different. So I can mention a bunch of artists right now.
Sure.
And you can think of, if I should say to you, Asha, Timi Dakolo, Lagbaja, Waje, Tenny, Bella. So you get it. For you to mention Bella, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a unique ID, I think, something that makes you as an artist just distinct. That thing. When I hear it in a person, and
is it deeper than tone?
I think tone, it consists of many things, include or a few things, including tone sometimes. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's tone. And by tone, I don't mean like frequency, being able to hold your do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. And many people can do that.
Yeah.
Apart from people who are tone deaf, many people can do that. So
Yeah.
it's not just that. It's your unique idea, I think, is the best way
Okay.
to describe it. It's just something that makes your voice memorable.
Hmm.
Something that makes me, it's Thames. It's, something that makes your voice memorable. You hear it and you're like, I want to hear this person again.
Yeah.
Some people have it in a way that is not complimentary, where the voice then grates on your nerves because it's there. It's like a niggling fly or something that won't just get away. It's just there. It's annoying. Yeah. But for some people, it's soothing. You want to hear it. There's something about it. So I think for me, it's distinguishing that or finding that out, recognizing that in an artist, in a person. Yeah, I think it just says this is recipe for not recipe, but this is an important ingredient. We can now begin to build a recipe for being a successful artist. Is that? I think it's also character. Like I don't want to tell you a story. I recorded a famous artist one time, and our studio sessions were so tough for me that there's a particular session we had one time we're meant to have, and just knowing that we were going to have a session that night, I developed a fever.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I didn't hate this artist, but we couldn't be in the studio at the same time. The artist was just so difficult to work with that I developed a fever, and I called the artist and I was like, I'm sorry, we have to at some point. So I struggled with it because I hated canceling sessions.
Yeah.
But I called the artist and I was like, we're going to have to call off this session. And the person went off, this, blah, blah, blah. In my mind, I just kept saying, this is the exact reason why I cannot be in the studio with you today. But I was like, listen, say whatever it is you want to say. As long as this thing ends in, we're canceling the session. We are booked to the hilt. We have to do this. And the artist went on and on and on and on and on. Eventually, I don't remember if the person even just, got off the phone or whatever. But effectively, it meant the session was cancelled.
Yeah.
And within a time space of like 20 minutes, my fever dissipated. Yeah, it just ebbed away the same way it came.
Yeah.
And so attitude, character, for me, that's just, I don't like wahala. I don't like stress. I really don't like stress. So yeah, so characterism. So a lot of the people I work with, who I've remained friends with to this day, they're my kind of, they don't like stress.
Yeah.
They don't stress me.
Yeah.
Even when I stress them, because sometimes I can be stressful, even as an artist.
Yeah.
And because I'm a human being and I'm not perfect,
Yeah.
we find our way around it. Timmy and I will always make music. We understand each other. Mami and I will always make music. There are a few people here and there, I'll always make music with them because they're not stressful people.
Yeah. Your personalities don't grate against each other.
They don't grate against each other. Yeah. So, so I think character is important in that sense. I need to be able to trust you. I need to be able to trust you that when the song blows, you're not going to want to shaft me and, back end is not going to be looking funny. So, yeah, so those kinds of things are important to me. Work ethic, like, just being willing to work, being ready, coming into the studio ready to work. I think that's important. Being able to improve, yourself and, just carrying grace with you.
Yeah.
It's important to me.
Fair
not
enough.
everybody knows how to carry. I think everyone has grace, but not everyone knows how to carry their grace.
Fair enough.
I like people who carry grace with them because then you're not wasting your time and making music that's just going to remain on your hard drive. It's going to go somewhere because they will work with it. They know how to use their grace, how to run with it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So this actually leads into my next question, which is getting into your work with Asha. So when Asha came back from France, she was introduced to you by a mutual friend, Janet Tumose, I believe.
Yeah, well, she was introduced to me before she went to France. Actually.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was I'm even just speaking about character, what was your first impression of Asha when you met?
It's always stories, right? So our first meeting was at, was it the French Cultural Center or somewhere? I don't remember. And, we're talking. I was trying to introduce myself to her. Obviously, I went to King's College. I was raised as a gentleman. There's a certain way you speak to women and people in general. And I was introducing myself to her and, trying to have a polite conversation. And she was greeting me as well, but she was like, "Hey, my brother, I hear there's one place not far from here where they sell fried yam. I hear the fried yam is nice." And I was like, "Yeah, this is my girl. This is my person. This is my person." Yeah, Asha is just, Asha is real. Asha is a correct person. Yeah. So that level of correctness for me was just, it went past all my avant-garde and all my finesse and it was such a pleasure to make the acquaintance. And this girl just went to eat fried yam, really, and make music. And be happy, stressless.
So like a disarming charm, kind of.
Yeah, no, and I was like, yeah, we're going to be friends. We're going to roll. We're going to, yeah. So that was it for me.
Fair enough.
And then, she came into a session. I was having a session with Dari, and she came in and we're playing the beat, and I was like, freestyle for me, and she just went off, and she had this Erykah Badu meets, I can't even begin to, and I was just like, there's like a high that comes from being in the studio with her and hearing her do her thing. So I think...
You call it a cocaine high, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah. So I think Asha found her voice. She found her voice. And she's able to convince you more than with anything else, more than with words, more than with anything. She's able to convince you with her voice.
Yeah.
And that worked. That worked on me for sure.
Fair enough. When you began working together, she apparently said that she was looking to make music. She says, Cobhams, I want magic that's arty. That's apparently the quotes that I've read.
Yeah.
Did you understand what that meant right away?
No, it was annoying and confusing. It was annoying because she kept saying, I want something. And it's interesting. This happened after she went to France and came back.
Okay.
I would later come to understand what that's about. So the honest truth is, who no good, no. When you've not experienced certain things, you don't really. So there she was coming back from France, having experienced the arts, the culture, that liberation. I was in Nigeria. I mean, I had my music and all of that and my science and my knowledge and all of that. But she had an advantage. She had seen something. She had experienced something. And I think I didn't understand that. I was still sort of stuck in, my normal at the time.
But what did music that's magic that's arty mean?
To me now?
Yes.
I think it's truth. It's true music. It's making music, from the perspective of an artist, a painter, a dancer, whoever it is. It's being fluid. It's expressing the truth that is inside you. It's not being bound by all the laws and everything that confines you to this box, this genre, this. Yeah. It's being able to express music that is from the soul, that two musicians can hear and bear witness to. It's music that is true. It comes from the inside. I mean, it also is, you're able to express it better when you have skill and experience. Yes. But it comes from the inside. It's tapping into the heavens and pulling out the sound. And I sound worse than her right now when she's talking about magic and artsy. But that's because I understand it. So in that instance, in that particular experience, she grew before I did. Yeah, she had an experience I hadn't had. And so, an experience I had begun to have, but not at the level she had just come back, having experienced it. Yeah, fair because enough. If I hadn't had that, I wouldn't be creating the kind of music I was creating at the time anyway. Yeah. Which was just, different by itself and in its, what's it called? So I might have been I want magic and I want arty to another person. But she had just experienced something. And I think she wanted to share that thing with me. And I don't think, she had better words to communicate that to me at the time. Fair. So it was annoying. It was yeah, because I kept saying, I want magic, I want music that's arty. I'm like, what do you think we're doing here? It's music that's arty, nice music that's magic. But it also drove me because I then created this sound for her then. Because another thing with me is I I'm not opposed to criticism. I'm not opposed to, I let people's criticism drive me to discover new things.
Yeah.
And because she kept saying that night I created, I made the beat for this song that, well, she didn't release. I understand some guys still went ahead and released it or whatever, but some song called, titled Hey Mommy.
I love that song.
Yeah, it was a crazy song. It was a mix of different things.
Like James Brown. And just
there was some James Brown in that. There was some funk, but there was some pop, and there was some, there's all kinds of things in that. So that came out of that desire to create something that's arty and magical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So something came out of it, in retrospect. Something came out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. You kind of hinted a little about like the situation I'm going to get into now. And I want to preface this by saying I'm not looking for gists. This is just a general conversation I want to have. So at the time when you first started working together, she was signed with Question Mark Entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
The same label where you were signed as an in-house producer.
That's correct.
So it feels like there was a lot of momentum during that period, but also tension, especially around Asha's music.
Yes.
How did that period impact the music you were making with her, as well as you as a person?
I think somehow we managed to compartmentalize. When we were in the studio and we made music. We tried to keep the tension separate from the music we were making. At some point, naturally, the tension would begin to get into the music. And I think what that did was it made us feel burnt out. It began to create this burnout situation for us. But we tried to keep the music away from the tension. That was what we did. We compartmentalized. Yeah. We were in the studio and we were making music. We're always making music. Our music had to be music. We had to feel it.
Yeah.
We had to enjoy it. It had to be inspired.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult thing to do when you think about it, because as creatives, you need all your wits about you.
Yes.
You don't want to be, incidentally, I was in a relationship around that time, and I used to say to my girlfriend, I'm like, look, I know you want to fight right now, and that's okay. That's fine, but can you just let me finish this song first. Let me finish this bit of music. Then we can settle down. You can fight all the fight you want. Because if this fight should start now, I'll not be able to concentrate. I won't be able to make this bit of music that I want to make now. I need my wits about me. I need inspiration.
If fight's deferred.
So can we defer this fight? And just do it later. And so for someone like Asha, for instance, who is not the person I was in a relationship with, just to put that out there. Being the kind of person that she is, no stress kind of person, easy. It was easy for us to get into the music.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was easy for us to get into the music at any rate. So that was what we did.
We
got into the music, we made the music, and then we got out and we dealt with all the tension that was, part of the administrative cycle and life and all of that that we had to do.
Did that period change how you approach your business or artistry in any way?
Maybe later, maybe in retrospect. I can't say it did immediately because, again, I was too much in the music to learn anything from that period. I was in the music. Yeah, when we were in the studio, and the music was what we did most of the time. Yeah, so I was in the music much too much to... Okay, I just also knew I didn't want stress. I knew I didn't want stress. I knew I didn't want wala, because I didn't like how that made me feel.
Fair.
But I was too much in the music to even be present enough to learn anything from that experience at the time.
I see. Fair enough. So I want to talk about the process of making the songs just a bit. So when working on the album, was it the sort of thing where you were making several versions of songs? Like, some artists do 20, 30. Or was it a mixture where some songs, might have landed a bit more effortlessly and you were good from there? Yeah, we just did what seemed right to us. We didn't have the skill and the knowledge and the stories of Michael Jackson making how many, the iterations and this and that. So we didn't have all of that to work with. If it felt good, all the songs had stories behind them. There was no lights. We were hanging out at a friend's house. I was playing the guitar. Asha was singing random songs. And among the random songs, she began to sing this song called Eya Daba. And I was like, stop. That's a beautiful song. And then I developed a guitar intro to and then, I started to play that and I would ask her to sing the song. So we started out performing the song among our friends, in the living room or whatever. And I was like, let's go to my friend Kevin's studio and go and record this. And
we had a stabilizer that just kept clicking while we were recording and
Okay.
causing us to stop, which was annoying. But even with the clicking stabilizer, we made the first demo, which we put on radio, and people just, everyone who heard the song just went wild, like, what is this? And all the songs came to us like that. Jayla started with me going somewhere and being upset that the person who asked me to come and see him was not there. And I had to walk all the way to his estate gate
Wow.
because the taxi had dropped me. And in my mind, I was thinking, you know what? I'm in chains, but you're also in chains. You think you're imprisoning me, but in order for you to be a prison warden, you have to be in the prison with me as well, Mr. Jailer. So, it pretty much came from... And a friend of mine was like, no, don't say Mr. Jailer, say Mr. Gilbert. And I'm like, there's nothing like Mr. Gilbert's job. It's Mr. Jailer. And then Asha came back from France and I was like, I have this song for you. And, got really excited and we sat down and began to share the lyrics with her. And, she'd write down stuff. And, she was the scribe, I'd just be spitting lyrics out of my head and she'd be writing on paper and, and we just like that, we sat down and we came up with the song.
Yeah.
So all these songs so that was how the songs happened for us. It wasn't, you're going to go in and you're going to make an album. We're just making songs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're just making songs. Fire on the Mountain was recorded after the whole album was done in Paris. This was like 2 or 3 years later after most of the songs had been recorded. We had finished working on the thing. Fire on the Mountain was a chorus I had actually written for a song for Sasha.
Interesting.
And, somehow we couldn't get round to recording. The sessions were being postponed, sometimes by me, sometimes by her. And, we had finished working on the whole album and I just sang the chorus and she was like, oh, I like this chorus. And, she was a scribe. We were sitting in the kitchen of the apartment we were staying in Paris and, I think she wrote the words down on a piece of, I don't know if it was tissue paper. I don't know what it was. I don't remember.
Wow.
Anyway, the words just began to come and, we'd write the words. And so it wasn't, let's go in there and let's go and make a version. Let's go and do, it wasn't planned. It was just, we were in each other's lives.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time together, days and nights, just, and it wasn't anything... it was just a normal relationship. 3 friends, myself, Asha, and Janet, just rolling.
Yeah.
They would cook, I would eat, we would write, we'd be happy.
Yeah.
And we're just making music.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much where all of that came from.
This is a fanboy question. Another one that's like from just growing up listening to that album. Yeah. What is that sound at the end of Eya Dabara? What is that?
So, to answer your question more directly, it was a guy, a French guy, a guy from Paris who would play the flute and hum at the same time.
Ah.
Yeah, so what had happened was when we recorded the first cut of Eya Daba, I had played the flute on that. Da, 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 da. Eya Daba has 2 versions. There was a version that was recorded and put out around 2004, 2005, and then the album version.
Okay.
So I played the flute on that, first cut. And so when we're recording the cuts in the studio, we decided we wanted the flute played again. And by this time I was like, well, I don't want to, I'd stopped playing the flute for years. And I was like, let's get a professional. And so they called this guy, I think it was called Magic something. I don't remember his name, because he could play the flute and add his voice to it. So it was something he did. It was part of his act.
Yeah.
So when he played the flute, during the flute solo, da, 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 he just played. But somewhere towards the end, so he had done a track where he had that whole thing going, at different parts of the song.
Yeah.
And we had this amazing sound engineer, Christophe, who thought, you know what, let's just bring this in here. It would sound great. And we put it in there and it sounded nice. We're like, we're leaving, we're keeping it.
Do you know what's so insane to me?
Tell me.
It's the fact that feels so traditional and it comes from a French man. That context is ridiculous.
He might not have been originally a French descent.
Fair enough. Okay,
he might have
because
been
that's
Algerian or Malian or something. I'm not
fair.
sure. I don't recall exactly now.
Fair, because it felt like a Yoruba person.
Oh, just going off. And
yeah, like an Oriki.
So it was soulful. It was soulful. And then so there were moments, there were, tons and tons of just moments, during that project that I think everyone answered to the music. So it didn't matter if you were black, white, red, whatever. You answered to the music. It was about what the music wanted at the time.
Yeah.
So you were a slave to the purpose.
Yeah.
more than
muse, as
anything
they
else.
like to call it.
You were a slave to the purpose. And so I think everyone that worked on that project just came and gave themselves. And I think because the sound was so different, people wanted to bring something that matched, something that measured up to the intent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so heartwarming. There's a lot of live instrumentation on the project.
Absolutely.
I wonder if that was a point of emphasis.
Yes, it was. It was how we knew to make. It was how I knew to make music at the time. I mean, I did a lot of digital sequencing, but I felt like that in order for the album to send forth her voice in a manner that was, and when I say send forth, I don't mean send away, but put her voice forward, I think would be more appropriate.
Okay.
In a manner that was befitting, it had to be organic. It had to be as natural as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it just the digital sounds all by itself. And even when we didn't have much, when all we had was me and my guitar, we both used to carry our guitars all over the place. I would still play the guitar and play bass and try and play electric guitar and try and play whatever. I'd be a one-man band when we're cutting the demos and all of that, because we felt that best expressed, her voice, her sound,
Fair
and
enough.
if at all we're going to do anything digital, it would be outlandish, out of this world digital. It would be sonically, bordering on sci-fi, like something just totally different.
Like
And
the DJ scratches on No One Knows Tomorrow, for example.
exactly. The DJ scratches on No One Knows, that sort of thing. It would augment in a way that is not typical.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there had to be something digital, it had to feel different. It had to play a role other than try to be an instrument.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a couple quick fire questions because we have to wrap up. First one, did you realize the magnitude of what you and Asha were creating?
Subconsciously, yes.
Okay.
Consciously, no.
Okay. Who is a Nigerian producer you swear by but doesn't get enough credit in your opinion?
E. Kelly.
E. Kelly.
Yeah, man.
Shout out to E. Kelly.
E. Kelly's, E. Kelly.
Give me 5 of your all-time favorite albums that you keep in constant rotation.
Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Okay, that's a great one.
Dr. Dre, Chronic.
Okay.
This is tough.
My bad. I know I always do this.
This is tough. Michael Jackson, Thriller.
Okay.
This is tough.
Maybe Haruna Eshola, maybe?
No. As much as I love
Akbala.
that Akbala, I wouldn't say. Yeah, most of them are like foreign influence. I don't remember the title, but so like 2 of Lagbaja's albums, quite honestly.
Okay.
I don't remember their titles, but
Fair.
maybe his last 2.
Okay.
And then what would be
Songs in the Key of Life?
You would think, but no.
It feels like an obvious one.
It's there, yeah, it's there. I love it. I love Stevie Wonder. But no, not.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I'd go with those.
Okay, cool. Awesome. What 4 producers are on your Afrobeats Mount Rushmore?
Blaze Beats.
Ooh, what?
Yeah. Oh,
that has shocked the hell out of me.
No, Blaze Beats.
Wow. Shout out Oba.
I love Uba. What am I saying? When he moved from Uba to Uba, what am I saying? I was one of the first. I shouldn't say I was one of the first, but I noticed instantly when he did. Don't you play games with my heart? And all of that, I was like, Uba has changed. Has changed his tagline. I love Blaze Beats.
Shout out to Blaze.
I love P Prime.
Of course.
It's
one of my faves.
Love Louder.
Okay. New gen guys, I love it.
Oh yeah. I love Louder. Let me see. Who has done it for me? Like these 3 guys I've mentioned: Uber, Louder. No, I'm coming there.
Okay.
there.
Wow. Okay.
I love this. Wait. P Prime, Uber, Louder. Who else has done it for me? Oh yes, I know who. I know people don't talk about him as much, but he's special to me. Dr. Seth. He's special. He's special. Now, honorable mentions, Saz. Saz is perhaps Saz is one of my best producers of all time. Like Saz is, I'm talking Nigerian beyond. Yeah, even outside of this country, Saz is one of the best. Saz is one of the greatest producers to make music. Period.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
his mind is. I feel about Saz the way I feel about MI. I think Nigeria does not. I think we don't know what we have in MI. Sorry, it was meant to be a fire question.
It's okay.
I'm not going
okay.
off. Yeah, but I don't think we know who we have.
Yeah.
I don't think we know who MI is. MI is like the best book you've ever read, the best movie you've ever watched, the best. MI is sorry. I'll get past this real quick. MI's history, musical depth, his mind, everything about him is I can't find the words. Let's just leave it alone.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Let's leave it alone. Yeah, so I feel about Saz the way I feel about MI.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Saz is yeah. So honorable mention Mastercraft, honorable mention Saz.
Awesome.
Yeah, honorable mention
Jazzy.
these guys. Jazzy is Jazzy is Baba now. Jazzy is Baba.
So another thing that we like to do, we like to build a dream producer. So we give you a couple categories. You tell us which producer best fits that category in your mind. First one, drums.
Which one between P Prime? Dr. Seth.
Okay.
Hands down.
Okay.
Hands down.
Okay. Next one, chords.
Can you give me all of them at once?
Let me through all the different categories?
Yes.
Okay, so drums, chords, percussion, sampling, versatility, personality. And it doesn't have to stick to Afrobeats, by the way. Even though it would be nice.
Okay. Versatility, P Prime.
Okay. Okay.
That guy can make all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Is Saz in the mix as well?
I mean, you could put him there if you want.
Okay, a tie between P Prime and Saz.
For chords.
For versatility.
Okay, versatility.
For chords.
Mastercraft?
Yeah, chord variation. I'd say Mastercraft.
I think P Prime is up there too.
Yeah, P Prime is up there. But in terms of chord, not variation, I'm trying to look for the word. In terms of progression, yes, the chords that move my soul.
Yeah.
Blaze Beats.
Okay. Damn, high praise for Blaze. I love it.
Yeah.
Percussion. Rexy.
Yeah, Rexy is no. Maybe. Let's see. Will I go back to P Prime again?
I wouldn't mind. I think he's incredible.
Yeah, P Prime.
He's incredible.
Yeah, P Prime.
Sampling, and you can open this up because I don't know that Nigerian music is very sample heavy.
Sampling, because of some of the work he's done with Burner, I want to say these days maybe Chopsticks.
Okay, yeah, that last flip was incredible.
Yeah, Chopsticks. He's on that sampling. They've picked out some good samples.
Yeah,
they have.
Okay.
So, just before we go foul, I need to say this is incredibly important.
Okay.
There is one producer that is he's the best of everybody in a way for me. And I think I don't know if I shouldn't say he's underrated just yet because he'll get his flowers in time. But he's the best of everybody. If there's anything any producer does, I think he does it. He's just not as known for it yet. And that's a guy called Shiro.
Shiro. Okay.
Some people know him as Mr. Soul. Some people know him as Shiro. He wrote and he produced Who's Your Guy.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. But I think Who's Your Guy is perhaps one of his more sort of basic productions that I've heard. Like he's he's incredible.
Awesome.
He's a crazy individual.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Couple more, just two more. What is in store for you musically in the future, and when can we expect to hear it? If there's anything. So
there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. I'm defining my sound musically, and I'm very excited about that. I've been through just different phases, and I'm at a place where I'm enjoying making music that I consider to be true, influenced by everything that is true to me. So, from the Beatles to Rex Lawson to Elton John to Sting to Burner to Wiz to Davido to everything, just music. I'm excited about that. The Traffic song is an example, I think.
Yeah, I love that song.
If you notice, it's very hymnal in terms of how it's written.
Yeah.
But the lyrics are very tongue in cheek, so it's very Nigerian in that sense.
Yeah.
But the melody is also very
like even the euphemisms for like sex and things.
Yes, yeah. It's very the melody is very Gaelic, very traditional Scottish, very Orkney, all of that. So it's just a little bit of everything. So I'm not afraid to make music that I enjoy, and I believe someone somewhere who's probably not making noise on Instagram will enjoy it as well.
Fair.
So I'm doing that. I'm going to put out work in that direction a lot more. So it'll be anything. It will be anything.
Okay.
I've got music with all kinds of people, with Yemi Alade, with Rebecca,
awesome.
with Benson, with
oh wow, okay.
With Ladipo, with just all kinds of.
Is there a
people.
timeline?
No.
Okay, fair enough.
Not
no,
at
fair,
the moment.
fair. Just asking.
Yeah, but I've got music with all kinds of people. I'm excited to put them out. I'm excited to go on the road. So as I share this music, I'm also going on the road with songs and stories. We just did one. We've been doing songs and stories for some time now. We're taking it to Houston, taking it to a couple other places. Yeah, so I'm excited to go on the road with my music.
Awesome.
And
my final question of the day. So you've spoken about how sides can be a distraction in pursuing goals and the need to be blind to those distractions. Regarding Nigerian music, what must we press on to create a better future, and what must we be blind to?
What must we press on to create a better future? I think I think we must recognize that what we've always had going for us is the truth in our music. Afrobeats is everything that it is because it is true. It is our sound. It's a culmination of all the different sounds that have influenced us and that have given us culture. I think we should never forget that. I think it's easy to forget that because of money or capitalistic intentions or whatever. So I think we must just press on, I think our musical truth as a people that is rooted in our culture. And when I say our culture, I don't mean what we've always done in the past from far back when. I mean, even our culture that is today, our speak that is today, the vibes and inshallah, everything. Yeah, I think we should recognize that, we're constantly building our culture. And I think we should press on that and continue to tap from that and continue to be inspired by that to continue to build our music.
And what must we be blind to?
What must we be blind to? This is a question I have to answer carefully. I think we must be blind to the distraction of one-sidedness. I think we must be blind to desperation. The desperation that also drives us to make music. I think it can kill our music. I think it can destroy our music. I think we're becoming too desperate. I think, I think we must be blind to desperation. I think we're becoming too desperate. And because of that, we're not able to think. I think when you're in a place of desperation, you're not thinking clearly. Yeah. I think we must be, it's got to be desperation. That's it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. That's what will cause us to make the wrong decisions in terms of how we find funding to do our music, in terms of why we create our music and how we create music that does not last, and how we create music that is no longer an homage to our culture, past, present, and future, but music that is now, let me do the next thing that will go out there. And, if everybody's releasing music on Friday, you're desperate to jump on the bandwagon, put out your music on Monday if you feel like it's going to be work. Just don't be desperate. Yeah, I think we should be blind to desperation.
Awesome.
It can kill us.
Awesome. Cobhams, I don't even know where to start. Thank you, because this has been a hallmark of my life. I'm genuine.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being forthright with your answers. This has been incredible. I can't wait to watch it back. And thank you guys for getting to the end of another episode with us. I usually have so much to say at the end of our outros, but I feel like there's nothing more that can really be done. You know where to find us at With an S Pod on everywhere on social media. If you want to get in contact with us, use the hashtag With an S Pod. And also leave us a review everywhere you leave reviews, any DSP, whatever, because it helps us get in front of the people we want to be in front of. But outside of that, this is me signing out. Cobhams, thank you.